Sunset relished the way they quaked in fear below her. They had all thought their little pony princess was somehow going to save them, but Sunset had the crown. The school was already under her control, her mindless minions to do her bidding, and the only thing in between her and everything she wanted was the little princess and her friends. Well, they wouldn't be for long. Sunset put her hands together and gathered magic between them. She created a fireball and threw it at the helpless fools below her. Sunset laughed gleefully at her victory. It was finally time. There was nothing to stop her from taking over Equestria. But when she looked back at where there should be nothing but ash, 6 teenage girls were encased in a magic glow, completely unharmed. It wasn't fair. This was supposed to be Sunset's victory. She had done everything right. She had the crown and they had nothing. And yet somehow, the princess was able to draw the magic from Sunset's crown, connecting it with the other elements of Harmony. The 6 girls channeled Harmony's magic, aiming it straight at Sunset. There was nothing she could do as the rainbow light engulfed her. She couldn't even scream out as she felt it ripping her apart, disconnecting her from herself. It left her as nothing, but it did not destroy her. Harmony did not destroy, only rebalance. As nothing, she fled. She traveled along the space in between spaces, feeling rather than seeing as she made her way to wherever she made her way to. Something familiar caught her attention, and she was drawn to it. She moved through the darkness, seeking it out, a feeling of desire, a drive to be more, and anger, so much anger. It felt familiar, and it would be hers. Sunset screamed as she woke up, not because of the dream, which had been strange enough on its own, but because there was a searing pain, as if something were burning in her head. But then as soon as it came, it was gone. Sunset collapsed back onto her bed with her head in her hands. A glance at the clock next to her showed that it was already 8 in the morning anyway. Even on a Saturday, Sunset wasn't one to sleep in, so it was time to get up. That dream had been so bizarre. Sunset had been at a school she didn't recognize, and there was some sort of demon. She had power, though. So much power. And it had been thrilling to be so in control. She wasn't sure whether it was a good or bad dream, but she didn't put much stock in dreams anyway. There was a knock on the door. "Miss Shimmer, are you all right? I heard screaming." The voice belonged to one of the maids her parents had hired to look after the house while they were too busy with their own lives to be bothered. And by extension, it belonged to one of the people who had actually raised Sunset, since her parents certainly couldn't be bothered with her either. "I'm fine," Sunset answered. "I just hit my head." "All right then, miss. Would you like me to prepare your breakfast?" "No thanks. I'll head downstairs soon." "As you wish." Sunset knew she hadn't hit her head, but she didn't want to admit to having random pain that emerged from her dreams. She was 17 years old, far too old to worry about some stupid nightmare. Top of her class at the Admiral Fairweather Military Academy, the most prestigious military academy in the country, with a reputation to uphold and a legacy to represent. She was not afraid of a dream. She pushed it from her mind and rose to her feet. At least Saturday meant she didn't have to bother with the school uniform. Instead, she chose a flashier designer dress that was sure to turn heads whenever she went into town later. Everything was fine until Sunset sat down to do her hair. Her expression was blank when she looked into the mirror, but her reflection still grinned back at her. Her hand shot to her mouth, but she was too transfixed by the sight to scream. "Well now," it said, "this should be interesting." Her reflection just laughed as everything in the mirror was engulfed in flame.